Hi, my name is Calypso and you're watching Film Formula. Today we'll be attempting to break down classic screenplay structure using chick flicks, namely Mean Girls, Trainwreck, and 50 Shades of Grey. Because anytime you can have a blonde, redhead, and brunette, you should just go for it. We can start with the opening image, which is really our first impression of the movie. In Mean Girls, we get this great low-angle shot from Katie's point of view, where her parents treat her like a little kid.
I put $1 in there so you can buy some milk. You can ask one of the big kids where to do that.
So we're prepared for this movie to be a coming-of-age story. In Trainwreck, the main character Amy's father is telling her and her sister that
monogamy isn't realistic,
which will turn out to be her struggle throughout the entire film. And as for 50 Shades of Grey, we get clouds. Okay, maybe that's not really the opening image. Okay, Seattle. Now we get Christian Grey putting on his shoes. I guess they didn't think about the opening image too much. Anyway, as for the setup, in Mean Girls, we get this neat little backstory package about how Katie was in Africa, yada yada, and we get a very dialogue-heavy exposition courtesy of her new friends Janice and Damien.
Where you sit in the cafeteria is crucial. Beware of the plastic.
Meanwhile, Amy sleeps with someone new each night. She seems very happy about that. She has no interest in monogamy or commitment, and it's very clear. In 50 Shades, we get a clumsy interview where they tell each other things about themselves.
So you're studying journalism as well?
No, English lit.
It's quite boring, really. At some point towards the beginning of the movie, one of the characters might unknowingly impart a bit of wisdom, called the theme stated. In Mean Girls, Katie says,
They wanted me to get socialized.
The perils of socialization is what she'll be faced with throughout the entire film. In Trainwreck, her sister says,
Maybe you should consider changing your ways.
which will end up being her character arc throughout the movie. In 50 Shades, Christian says,
Oh, I exercise control in all things, Miss Steele.
Throughout the film, Christian tries to control Anastasia, and Anastasia tries to control him by making him less controlling, I guess. I'd say that's the thematic line, but really I wish it was this.
What are butt plugs?
I mean, how do you not know, girl? Okay, so in most movies, we have a catalyst or inciting incident. It's something that pulls the protagonist out of the life that they're used to living and sets the story going. In Mean Girls, it's when this Jason douchebag person bothers Katie, and Regina saves her.
She's not interested. Do you want to have sex with him?
No, thank you.
It's quite a coincidental event, but it sets the story going. In Trainwreck, Amy gets assigned an article on Aaron Connors, the sports doctor, even though she doesn't like sports.
Sports are stupid, and anyone who likes them is just like a lesser person and has a small intellect.
I want you to write the piece.
The interesting thing about 50 Shades is that the inciting incident happens before the beginning of the movie. Sometimes the timing gets a bit odd when the movie is based on a book. Her roommate apparently gets sick, so Anastasia has to fill in for her to interview Christian Grey, and that's how she meets him. So during the debate/indecision portion of the film, the protagonist struggles between two decisions, one that will keep them exactly where they are, and one that will propel them forward, causing their life to change. In Mean Girls, Katie has trouble deciding whether or not she wants to go ahead with Janice's plan to sabotage the plastics. She's starting to like the plastics. After all, every social group comes with rules, as arbitrary and oppressive as they may be.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week.
In Trainwreck, it's not so much that, but rather the thematic debate between commitment and not commitment. First, she wonders whether or not to hold on to her dad's memorabilia, and remember her dad is a symbol for all the troubles of monogamy. Her other issue is whether or not she really likes the wrestler dude. He's hot, but he only has half a brain. A bit of healthy indecision is for the discerning individual, and Anastasia is not one of them. She pretty much immediately decides that she wants to get into Grey's pants. The lack of the debate/indecision portion is one of the many reasons why I don't think this movie works very well. Her emotionality happens too quickly. It's hard to buy it. The moment the protagonist finally makes a decision spells the beginning of Act 2. In Mean Girls, Katie tells Regina that she has a crush on Aaron, but she does this. So she finally agrees to carry out Janice's plan of sabotaging the plastics. This sets Act 2 into motion. In Trainwreck, Amy seems to choose non-commitment. She says no to the wrestler and his CrossFit dreams.
I'll rule the CrossFit world with you by my side, my CrossFit queen.
Can I leave?
In 50 Shades, Anna almost decides to delete Christian's number, but instead, she drunkenly calls him. At some point, a B-story is introduced. Traditionally a love story, but not always. In Mean Girls, it's obviously when Aaron sits in front of her in math class and she has this love at first sight moment. In Trainwreck, it's the whole storyline about whether Amy's gonna get this executive editor position by finishing the article. And in 50 Shades, there's not really a B story here because everyone knows a hot rich dude is the only thing in the world that matters. The first part of Act 2 is sometimes referred to as the fun and games portion. It's all the trailer moments, the fun bits that sell an audience on a film. The foot cream scam, nipple holes, I don't know what you call them, the Jingle Bell Rock song, a makeover, and the MILF mom whatever. In Trainwreck, we get the motion tracker suit, the funny sleeping arrangement, awkward first nights, the gross knee and subsequent puking. In 50 Shades, I guess the seduction/honeymoon period. She gets new clothes, helicopter rides, she meets Gray's mother, etc. But throughout this entire time, he sneakily tries to get her to sign a contract that basically makes her into his sex slave. Kinda creepy. The midpoint twist, happening roughly in the middle of the movie, is basically a game changer. Something happens that turns the world upside down. In Mean Girls, Katie kisses Aaron, kinda making him cheat on Regina, which is exactly what Regina did a while back. So basically, Katie is becoming Regina, the thing that she hated. In Trainwreck, Amy's in love.
I like him so much.
This is kind of a funny midpoint twist because usually falling in love is seen as a good thing, but it's kind of a detriment for someone with Amy's lifestyle. And in 50 Shades, Anastasia never really signs a contract, but there's this really dramatic business meeting with dramatic lighting where they negotiate the contract.
Find anal fisting,
I'm all ears.
strike it out.
So right after this serious midpoint twist, here's where all the fun moments kind of disappear or they lessen, and now everything gets serious. In Mean Girls, she turns on her friends, she turns on her family, the party's out of control, alcoholism, the vase gets put into danger. Let's not forget the vase. And of course, puke isn't cute. Janice calls her a mean girl.
You are a mean girl!
In Trainwreck, right after she tells Daddy that she's in love, he insists that
He's gonna break your heart.
she goes to a freaky-ass baby shower, during which people say a bunch of freaky things.
My life did not begin until I had kids. Your life has not begun.
And to make it worse, he wants kids.
Yeah. I think I'd like to have 2 kids.
Amy does not like that. In 50 Shades, control completely flips. Now we don't really have the cutesy helicopter rides, dinners. We have spanking, spanking, spanking. She starts to get isolated. He starts to stalk her. Not very nice. Okay, so the all is lost moment is usually when the complications have reached their climax. Things are at their worst. It's usually accompanied by a death of some sort, either physical or metaphorical. In Mean Girls, it's the metaphorical death of Regina, which really symbolizes the Regina personality within Katie. Katie owns up to the burn book and finally joins the mathletes. She has literally gone from one of the most liked people at the school to one of the least. In Trainwreck, the death is more obvious. It's the death of the father, who, by the way, is a symbol of non-committal behavior. Right after that, her article gets cancelled.
Would you fuck that?
Sure.
You would? I wouldn't fuck that with your dick.
Ouch! She and Aaron get into a huge argument and he messes up the surgery. They take a break. In 50 Shades, Anastasia completely releases her autonomy by letting Gray do whatever he wants to do to her. So he ends up hitting her pretty hard a few times and she doesn't like it. The relationship is over. Act 3 usually begins as the dawn after the dark night of the all is lost moment. It's traditionally a synthesis between the thesis world of Act 1 and the antithesis of Act 2. After the death, there is always rebirth. Throughout the film, Katie has forgotten who she is.
Who are you?
But now that Regina's dead, Katie can live on. What not everybody realizes about Mean Girls is that the plastics are not necessarily the problem. Society as a whole is the problem, in the way that it corrodes the individual. Starting with Janice.
How do you spell your name again, Caddy?
It's Katie. C-A-D-Y.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you Caddy.
And even her parents.
This is the fertility vase of the Ndebele tribe. Does that mean anything to you? No.
Mathletes is actually where she rediscovers who she truly is.
Miss Caddy Heron.
It's Katie. Oh my god, that's me.
In Trainwreck, Amy apologizes to her sister.
I want you to know that I act like everything you do in your life is so wrong and stupid. But it's just because I don't think that I can have that.
The rebirth is quite literal. Amy touches the unborn baby and says,
She'll be fine.
So there's hope. In 50 Shades, Anastasia simply grows a backbone and opts out. She learns that you can't change someone.
Why?
Because it's the way I am!
Which is what I really like about this movie, actually. Despite, it being a horrible movie. This leads us to the climax. In Mean Girls is when Katie wins the championship for the mathletes. There's a nice little thematic nugget in there.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist!
If you act like someone, then do you become that person? By the way, this guy, Kevin G, I think?
Kevin G!
Is a great symbol for individuality because as a mathlete's nerd, he's expected to act in a certain way, but instead he's all gangster. In Trainwreck, Amy reflects on the past advice.
You know, the thing about cheerleaders is that they bring people together and they make people happy.
And decides to do this awesome cheerleading segment to win back the love of her life, whatever. 50 Shades ends really, really quickly, but she says no very firmly in the elevator.
No!
And regains all of her autonomy. Okay, so there's not really a B-story climax in 50 Shades because there was no B-story. In Mean Girls, it's obviously when Katie kisses Aaron, even though he was cheating on her, and I don't know, he was cheating on two people at the same time, but because he bought her a pancake gift certificate or something.
One gift certificate to the Walker Brothers Pancake House.
They're back together. Okay, whatever works for you. In Trainwreck, Amy gets into Vanity Fair with her great article. The closing image is our last impression of the film. In Mean Girls, we get these junior Mean Girls, which is kind of a nice touch. It means, the cycle will continue. It's a universal coming-of-age struggle. Leaving the parental nest and venturing out into the real world requires some tug-of-war between the individual identity and that of the group collective. In Trainwreck, Aaron and Amy kiss, and Amy says,
I want to try with you.
Well, that's quite a character arc from monogamy isn't realistic to loving and trying. I'm not sure what's happening in 50 Shades. Grey suddenly stands up in this Inception-like ending where you don't know if, will he go after her? Will he not go after her? Will anybody care? But the structure of that movie is quite odd. As mentioned, it was based on a book. I know Mean Girls was based on a book too. There you have it, film formula for Mean Girls, Trainwreck, 50 Shades of Grey. Thank you for watching, and please remember to comment and subscribe.